Jim Cornette's 1997 WWE Talent Evaluations, a firestorm unleashed. In the smoky haze of 1997, professional wrestling was a battlefield of egos, athleticism, and raw ambition. The World Wrestling Federation, WWF, now WWE, was clawing its way through the Monday Night Wars, locked in a brutal ratings struggle with World Championship Wrestling, WCW. Amid this chaos, Jim Cornette, manager, commentator, and wrestling purist, delivered a scathing evaluation of the WWF roster that sent shockwaves to the locker room and beyond. Known for his sharp tongue and unfiltered opinions, Cornette's 1997 Talent Evaluations, aired during a now infamous segment on Monday Night Raw, became a defining moment in wrestling history, exposing tensions, sparking debates, and cementing his legacy as a fearless provocateur. Cornette, a Louisville native with a lifelong passion for wrestling, had been a fixture in the industry since the 1980s. As the loudmouth manager of the Midnight Express, he'd mastered the art of drawing heat from crowds. By 1997, he was a WWF commentator and creative team member, wielding influence behind the scenes. The WWF roster was a mix of larger-than-life stars like Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, alongside mid-carders and newcomers struggling to break through. The company was pivoting toward edgier storylines, a shift that would birth the Attitude Era, but clashed with Cornette's old-school sensibilities. On October 13, 1997, during a Raw episode, Cornette stepped into the spotlight with his "I'm Jim Cornette, and that's my opinion" segment, a platform for his unvarnished takes. That night, he unleashed a tirade targeting the WWF roster, prompted by a creative team frustrated with inconsistent performances. The segment was framed as a response to New York Post columnist Phil Mushnick, a vocal wrestling critic, but Cornette turned it inward, dissecting the talent with surgical precision. "Some of these guys couldn't wrestle their way out of a paper bag," he roared, his Kentucky drawl dripping with disdain. He praised technicians like Hart and Michaels, but lambasted others for sloppy ring work, lack of psychology, or relying on gimmicks over skill. Backstage, the reaction was immediate. Wrestlers gathered around monitors, some nodding in reluctant agreement, others seething. Mid-carders like Mark Merrow and Flash Funk, rumored targets of Cornette's critique, felt the sting most acutely. "He called me a glorified stuntman," Merrow later recalled in a shoot interview, his voice tight with resentment. Cornette's words weren't just criticism. They were a public indictment, aired before millions. For a roster already under pressure from WCW's deep-pocketed poaching, it was a gut punch. "Jim didn't care who he pissed off," said Bruce Pritchard, a fellow creative team member, on his podcast. He believed in wrestling as an art form and hated seeing it bastardized. The evaluations weren't just about in-ring ability. Cornette slammed the over-reliance on high-risk moves, a trend fueled by WCW's cruiserweights and the rising influence of extreme wrestling. He argued that storytelling, not flips, made stars, a view that put him at odds with younger talent embracing a flashier style. He also took aim at the WWF's creative direction, subtly jabbing Vince McMahon's push for larger-than-life characters over work rate. "If you can't wrestle, go join the circus," he quipped, a line that drew chuckles from fans but daggers from colleagues. The fallout was seismic. Posts on X years later, like those from At Wrestling 80S 90S, still celebrate the rant as the greatest of Cornette's opinion segments, linking to grainy YouTube clips that capture its raw intensity. Fans loved the honesty, but backstage, trust eroded. Some wrestlers, like The Undertaker, respected Cornette's candor, seeing it as a call to elevate their game. Others, like the Headbangers, reportedly confronted him, only to be met with his trademark defiance. "I said what I said," Cornette later recounted, unapologetic. Vince McMahon, ever the opportunist, leaned into the controversy. The segment boosted Raw's buzz, giving fans a peek behind the curtain at a time when kayfabe was crumbling. But it strained Cornette's relationship with the locker room. By 1998, he was phasing out of the WWF, his traditionalist views clashing with the Attitude Era's excesses. Reflecting on the evaluations years later, Cornette stood firm. "I told the truth as I saw it. If that ruffled feathers, so be it." The 1997 evaluations remain a touchstone in wrestling lore, a moment when Cornette's passion for the business boiled over into a public reckoning. For some, it was a wake-up call. For others, a betrayal. But for fans, it was pure Cornette, unfiltered, uncompromising, and unforgettable.